Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more Gravity. Let's play chess. I won this game about 2 minutes ago. I finished, and there's a part of the game that, in my opinion, really shows some of my development as a chess player. Which, of course, okay, that's great for me, right? But it's also great for you because if you plan to develop as a chess player, you can see some of what my journey has led me to, and notice that in yourselves, perhaps, at some point in the future. Um, if that's what you're here for, if you're here to just watch great chess, then that's also a great thing. So, without too much further ado, without any further ado, uh, let's get into this chess game. My opponent and I played a game in 10 minutes per side. um, and it turned out to be an accurate game. Low 80s in accuracy compared to high 80s in accuracy, with the winner having high 80s in accuracy. So that's a cool thing too. 29 moves. Now, I played the King's Pawn opening. I've been playing the Queen's Pawn opening, but I've been playing the Queen's Pawn opening enough. So I wanted to change over to the King's Pawn opening. Just remind myself that it's there. And I sort of bullied my way into the English, and I don't like that word, though, bullied. I played c4 here. And we might get into some lines from the English opening, which, as I've argued, is a little bit more like a system than an opening. Sometimes White places knights to the same place. We often end up with c4, d3, f4, and it's kind of like a system for White. Anyway, d6. This is a little troubling for blocking in dark squared bishop. And early, maybe my opponent wants to get light squared bishop out. It's not the end of the world either. It's maybe an inaccuracy. And then knight f3, d4, right? I have enough coverage on the d4 square that I can just open the position up and early. E takes d4 is probably best move, and knight takes d4. Liquidating the knights on d4. I don't know. I don't know if black really gets anything from that. And here we are. Black to move, okay. But white has stronger center, a developed queen. She can't really be harassed by minor pieces like knight c6, because that knight is gone. For the dark squared bishop to make a issue out of things, it takes two moves to e7, then to f6, where we'll be blocking in his own knight from venturing to f6. Yeah, so I think here, really what happens more often is, or sort of tournament response would be maybe knight f6. And then white will probably put black in a Maroczy bind formation, kind of with pawns on c4 and e4 and a knight on d4. Then when a knight comes to c3, this is sometimes the Maroczy bind. But we liquidated on d4, and all other commentary aside, white is white is doing well, but it's this game is not over. Some normal developing moves. I push pawn to h5 here. Trying to make a pawn storm. Mostly because I saw the board here and then again a move later. It's just, there's nothing happening, right? There's no reason to not do a pawn storm. White could castle king side, but why? Who's knocking at the door with a strong attack right now? Nobody. So instead of castling and using that tempo to be like more safe with my king, I played h4 when I get something going on the king side. Castles king side is fine, and then h5. Now we really have something going on the king side. c5 shows some fight from black to reposition my queen. So I place my queen on a safe square at d3. Bishop c6, and then pawn to h6. I'm gonna force this slight hole, this weakness in black's camp here. The g7 weakness is slight, but it's hard to get rid of. Turn after turn after turn, my pawn at h6 will have control over the g7 square. Pawn to g4. And we have enough protection on that pawn to start getting the other pawn going. This pawn's not going anywhere all too soon. So we'll get more pawns into the pawn storm with g4. And the knight moves away. I like this. Knight to d7 I thought was a strong move. Just really passively preventing g5 because black has one of her they strengths on the d8 h4 diagonal. It's a battery against the square at g5. Bishop f4. Knight e5. I'll trade. White chooses to trade here. With my queen being attacked, some other pieces being attacked with not all that much import. White chooses to trade off the dark square bishop for the knight at e5, mostly because, short of that, who's gonna kick this knight from this really strong outpost? As we know, a knight separated from another piece by a single diagonal square, that means that the attacking knight, he's not going to get there anytime soon. It takes like quite a few moves for this knight at c3 to attack e4. So we're talking now realistically, the pieces that can unseat the black knight are, the dark squared bishop. In some ways, maybe a move from the dark squared bishop and then the f pawn, which kind of gives you a moment of relief. But then also rooks or queens, and that's not good. So this outpost on e5 has to go right away. So I captured on e5, and the computer doesn't like it. Maybe I'm giving up a pawn somewhere else, but we're gonna have to live with that. D takes e5, and we've kind of got a different landscape here with queens in opposition. Yeah, I'll go with the evaluation bar on this. This is a pretty darn equal battle here. White has some slight trumps. Black has the only castled king. And will the queens exchange? Will the queens not exchange? Queenside castles. Just getting my king to a slightly safer spot. He's protecting the b2 square. White has some sort of weird ownership over the d file because it's not all that much of an ownership when the rook at f8 can move to d8 to pretty much scare the queen off the file. But this is the d file is where a lot of the action is at in this particular game. Rooks want it. Rooks and queens have it. Knights are helping assist some rook that might retake it, and so are bishops. So this is a really crazy fight for the d file. And I saw that thinking, change it, change something about it. Knight to d5 blocks the d file. This is an excellent outpost for White's knight. protected, 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 and protected again through X-ray, but not that that's really going to be all that necessary. Black might want to trade on d5 with bishop takes d5, but then I think white is doing fine after, and I think that was the move in the game. Bishop takes d5 is the best move, and white recaptures with the d pawn. Okay, so my idea with recapturing with the d pawn was that I like the white's chances in an endgame if I play queen to b5 and there's a swap of queens on b5. I like white's chances in this endgame. The argument, on the other hand, would be to capture with either the e pawn or the queen. I saw capturing with the e pawn as dampening my own queen's future. She doesn't have all that many squares to go to. She has a few here, all in white's side of the board, and she's blocked on a diagonal towards c4, on a diagonal towards e2. I think the queen should at least be able to offer herself as a trade for the opponent's queen. And so after c takes d5, c4 complicates matters, but the idea would be to try to play to b5 and trade queens. You can't do that with e takes d5. Now the last recapture, queen takes d5, is actually that's probably the move. Let's take a look in the analysis window. The analysis window does not like queen takes d5. There might be some sort of, let's try this. The answer, rook a d8. Aha, the rook at a is supported so strongly that it looks like black is building an attack in it, and with a score from the evaluation bar as high as 5 points in black's favor, there's going to be meat on it, as they say. The attack is going to result in white losing material. So okay, but I played c takes d5, which I still think I would have played again against e takes d5. I don't know. I just don't like, square taking, and this seems stronger to me, giving my queen more squares where she may proffer a direct trade of queens. Okay, so c4. Black takes what we sometimes call a shot. And if I capture, okay, yeah, take the bait on c4. I got this nice pawn now, all that. Then rook c8, or rather rook at a to c8, or rook at f to c8 will skewer the queen in front of her king, and black will have the day by way of enough of a material advantage, or should anyway. Accurate play. So I skirted over to c3, and bishop g5 check. Placed. I'm gonna just put my king on. I just put my king on b1. And it's not clear that either side really has all that much of a advantage over the other, but it is a dynamic board, not an incredibly it's not the most complicated of boards, and then again it's not the most simple of boards either. Capture on c4 here. My opponent brings in rook to c8, attacking white's queen. Like I said, just mostly a dynamic, not so complicated, and just about level or equal board. Now I finally get this queen to b5, move in. Well, I really want to trade queens now, even more so than before. My opponent doesn't go for that. If I trade queens, d6 and d7 look very strong. If I can get my pawn to d7 where my opponent's bishop can't attack it, and my opponent will have to some way in, like not all that much space, find a way to put two attackers against the pawn at d7, it's going to cost black a lot of time. And my pieces won't be able to find, who knows, some kind of treats along the 7th rank. Let's c1 now. The bishop, maybe not necessarily this way because the bishop has c1. Okay. My opponent played a much stronger move. Queen to f2. You can't fault this move. For both sides, neither side is threatening anything hanging. There's no hanging piece. Well, maybe the pawn on d7 is hanging, and with white to move nonetheless. But aside from that one pawn, which really, if white captures on b7, then rook to b8. The queen's got to move out of the way, and then maybe a bishop falls on e2, but there's also the follow-up threat of queen takes b2 check. The pawn at b7 looks like if you want to capture that pawn, you really have to calculate that that's the right thing to do, the right thing for white to do. Or even, queen takes b7 and queen takes e2 right away. So definitely not queen takes b7 there. We're back to here with what to do for white. I decided to push d6. The bishop can't capture it. We can push to d7 thereafter and have two pieces controlling the d7 square, or rather protecting the pawn at d7. In some variations, moving to d7 will also glean white a attack on the rook at c8. It's not clear with all these pawns so close that black can easily muster a counterattack against d7, just like we were saying before. So that's the idea here, is this promotion threat's going to increase over time. Rook to d6, so I'll push again. The clear threat of d8 equals queen cannot be ignored. Rook to d8, so as not to ignore. And here I said, I think white can even afford, maybe, at least for the sake of the game, to give up a full bishop on e2. And it looks like I was right. The correct response is for black: queen c5, bishop g5, rook c5, queen b6. Look, none of the recommended moves for black have black capturing on e2. And white has just enough time to play a move like queen e7, sacrificing the bishop. And now rook c7 here by black is a bad move, and white can take advantage immediately. And there's a queen sacrifice on d8. Rook takes d8, and rook takes d8, checkmate. I'm really proud of this game. I mentioned some of my improvement as a player, so let's get to that. Moves in particular. There's a move to a3. Let's watch a3. Oh yeah, the move to a3 is one of the... Yeah, so talking about progress and development as a player, here with white to move, I played the move queen to a3. giving up the knight without being sure that I have a forcing forcing win of material afterwards. Not the knight, the bishop. Giving up the bishop without being sure that I have a forcing win of material thereafter. That's not like me 8 years ago. That's it. Sometimes I made sacrifices and material sacrifices, but not for something as intangible, amorphous, or vague as strong attacking chances. I wouldn't normally be giving up a bishop for that. It was considered an inaccuracy anyway. Black has to find a way to defeat the idea of Queen E7, and wasn't able to. And I found the great follow-up Queen. I was going to play Queen E7, and now the game finishes with the Queen sacrifice on D8. It takes D8, checkmate. All right. Now all this. So it was a great game. I felt my opponent played a great game. I thought I played an even better game, and neither of us have anything to hang our heads about. I had a lot of fun doing so. That is playing this particular game of chess. I had a lot of fun sharing my ideas with you, my viewers. And that's it. Alright, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.